Clickbait title. This is not what you think. Hello everyone, anyone, and welcome to the Week I Review. My name is kubas-meyer, and today I want to talk about a movie, Searching. If you don't know anything about it or haven't seen any advertisements, it's part of this up-and-coming genre of computer screen cinema. It tells the story of David Kim, played by John Cho, whose daughter Margot disappears one night. And because it's 2018, he turns to computers to aid in the search. Everything you see in Searching takes place on a screen, and though you can see John Cho for much of its runtime, there's never a disembodied camera. It's a FaceTime video or something on YouTube. Before I talk about that, though, I want to talk about another movie, Unfriended, the 2014-15 horror film that brought this into the relative mainstream. A pseudo-sequel that I didn't watch, Dark Web, was released earlier this year, but the original Unfriended is something that I have spent a lot of time thinking about, evidenced by this 2,700 word review that I will link in the description below. It's one of the better ones I've written, but the film takes place in real time. It's a screen recording in the literal sense. You can see the entirety of protagonist Blair's laptop screen from start to finish, which is fascinating. I described it as a film about a girl who doesn't know how to use Command-C or Control-C if you're a Windows user. Anytime Blair needs to copy text, which is often, she goes through the laborious process of right-clicking, copying it, going to the location, right-clicking, and pasting it. For a teenage girl, that's completely ridiculous. And undoubtedly everyone involved knew that, but it exemplified the complexity of what the filmmakers were trying to achieve. As an invisible keyboard shortcut, it doesn't communicate action to the audience. It was a question of realism versus clarity, and the creative team went with the latter. Searching tends to avoid this problem by being something else entirely. Rather than just recording a screen, Searching uses the tools of cinematic language that have been developed over the century and applies them to this new type of production. There are pans and zooms and cuts. It has an original score. There are changes in location as David shifts between computers, and the switch from Mac OS to Windows in key moments is a silent but genuinely powerful set change. There's nothing inherently wrong with Unfriended's approach, which might be thought of as theatrical in an off-Broadway sense versus Searching's cinematic style. Each has a place, but what Unfriended did is more difficult to make interesting for the duration of a feature film. And while we're on the topic, let's finally talk about Searching's marketing. I hate it when movies advertise their big, twisty narratives, whether directly or by quoting some critic. This right here is the last ad that I saw for Searching before I went to see the movie. All it says, see the twist, keep the secret. I don't like it. If you don't know that a movie has a twist at the end and then it comes, you have this big, great reaction. You're surprised, hopefully thrilled, but when you go in looking for the twist, that consumes the movie. Everything becomes in service of this twist that you know is there and are now looking everywhere for. People have a natural tendency to want to outsmart movies. They want to figure out the twist because it means they're better than the movie or something. I don't know. But from the time I saw this ad until the moment I saw the movie, I was thinking about it. And I was thinking about my assumptions about that twist. Because when I see that there's something big, I always assume it's one of two things. Someone doesn't exist, or the protagonist did it. These are bad twists. They can work. I saw an example of the former earlier this year that was handled really very well. But it's a rarity. Fortunately, the creative team also knew this, so neither is the case here. In fact, neither is even flirted with. But the nature of the film's climax matters less than whether or not it is justified. And there's no narrative payoff in Searching that does not have some kind of setup, though that setup can be a little ham-fisted at times. It's not trying to trick you or pull the wool over your eyes. In fact, by its very nature, you forcibly have the exact same amount of information at all times as David, Which is the most interesting thing about the movie, because every interaction David has between his phone and his MacBook is easily accessible in one place that an audience can use to follow along with the story. It doesn't matter that the actual desktop was put together over many, many months in post-production. This is so cool, by the way, because that's what a desktop would look like were such a thing to actually be occurring. And if someone had remote access to that person's computer, they would have access to everything. The implication of these movies then is kind of terrifying because they only work because it's completely plausible to get the entirety of a story from text messages, FaceTime calls, etc., and not feel like information is being hidden from you. You can only feel like you're as in the know as the protagonist if the protagonist puts his every thought onto the screen. And he does. And you believe it. Because we all do it. 8.6 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did not, I will probably never do anything like this again, so, you should subscribe anyway. I hope to see you next week.